Daesh terrorist group, especially after the major decisions taken by France, Germany and Britain to join the war against the terrorist organization. Both Germany and British parliaments had consecutively agreed on hitting several Daesh targets in Syria and Iraq to combat the group that has been spreading terror. Although the West was earlier against waging war against Daesh in Syria, justifying their rejection by the fear of killing innocent people, the brutalities conducted by these terrorists has forced a number of nations to approve the initiative launched by France after the tragic Paris attacks that claimed the lives of 130 people. How will these decisions affect the world? Will these airstrikes be enough to bring an end to the terrorist organization? Will Syria and Iraq enter into a new phase of suffering? These are some of the questions that I'll be putting to my guests later on tonight's debate. But as usual, we like to bring you another story making headlines today. And just moments ago, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi delivered a speech before the inaugural session of the 14th round of the Arab Thought Forum, which was held at the Arab League's headquarters in Cairo. In his speech, President al-Sisi stressed that the current Arab challenges require the activation of a regional Arab system. Al-Sisi said that boosting joint Arab investment is important for all Arab countries, adding that Arab national interest should come on top of the Arab world's priorities. The president also said that Egypt and Saudi Arabia are taking many measures to boost the Arab joint cooperation in various domains, including security. Concluding his speech, the president stressed that the Arab League and the Arab Organization for Culture and Science should be developed. Well, that's all the top stories I have for you today. Let's take a look at the first report that we have prepared and a closer look at the latest decisions with regards to the combating of the Daesh terrorist organization. And then we'll be back here in the studio with my guests. Do stay tuned.
Egypt has been chosen to head the UN Security Council Counter-Terrorism Committee and two other committees. Foreign Ministry spokesman Ahmed Abou said in a statement that the choice of Egypt reflects the confidence of Security Council members in Cairo. Abou also said that Egypt will be heading two other committees at the UN Security Council. Following the announcement, Abou said that Egypt will work to defend and support African and Arab priorities at the Security Council. Earlier, German lawmakers approved plans for the nation to take on a direct role in the battle against Daesh in Syria, answering France's appeal for help after the deadly Paris attacks. Parliament agreed to the mandate for the deployment of tornado reconnaissance jets, a frigate and up to 1,200 troops by an overwhelming majority of 445 votes in favor and 146 against. The package approved by Parliament includes 6 Tornado aircraft which have no offensive fighter capability and are specialized in air-to-ground reconnaissance. Britain also joined the US-led bombing campaign over Syria, striking a Daesh-held oil field as the momentum to take action against the militant group increases. Following a vote, a Defense Ministry spokesman said that Royal Air Force planes based in Cyprus carried out the first offensive operation over Syria and have conducted strikes. The strikes carried out by 4 Tornado fighters focused on 6 targets in the oil field in eastern Syria, 48 kilometers from the Syria border. Britain already has 8 Tornado fighter jets plus drones involved in the US-led coalition striking Daesh targets in Iraq. They will be joined by 6 Typhoon jets, which took off from RAF in Scotland, and 2 more Tornado fighters, which were due to take off from RAF Marham in southeast England. Furthermore, a coalition led by the United States bombarded Daesh in Syria with 14 airstrikes and also hit the militant group in Iraq with 18 strikes. After repeatedly ruling out the use of boots on the ground, Obama also agreed to send as many as 100 special forces to Iraq with a mandate to carry out raids inside Syria. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry called for Syrian and Arab ground troops to take on Daesh militants to enable a complete defeat of the organization. Moreover, a new Japanese Foreign Ministry unit will start collecting information on militant groups such as Daesh in the countries they are based, also prompted into action by last month's attack on Paris. The unit will be set up on Tuesday with a staff of about 20, with a similar number working overseas in Japanese embassies. Over the past 9 days, Russian air forces has struck nearly 1,500 targets all over Syria, as military bombers now flying under cover of strategic fighter jets, following the downing of a plane by Turkey last week. Defense Ministry spokesman said in a briefing that the Russian air contingent carried out 431 sorties and bombed 1,458 targets in several regions of Syria, without mentioning whether any of them were affiliated with Daesh.
بأجيال قوية أحقق أمانيكي،
بإيدي هبنيكي، أجتهد لأعطيكي،
أخضر أراضيك.
محلاها عشت الفلاح مطمن قلبه مرتاح.
أبهر العالم بيك.
جميلة بكل ما فيكي. بدمي أحميكي.
A very warm welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me first to welcome my guests here in the studio. I'm being joined by Dr. Kamal Abou Okail, member of the European Committee of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs. Thank you very much for coming in, Dr. Kamal. Also joining me tonight is Dr. Samir Raghib, lecturer at the Nasser Military Academy and strategic expert. Thank you very much for your time. But gentlemen, if you'll allow me just to touch on something that I discussed earlier, and that was President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's speech. And joining me for a bit of analysis on that speech is Dr. Saeed Sadiq, Professor of Political Sociology. Thank you very much for speaking to us.
You're welcome, my dear, and my greetings to your guests.
A pleasure is all mine. Let me just first off ask you, sir, what do you think were the most important aspects of the President's speech today?
Well, even before we talk about the speech, the fact that he is meeting one of the most important Arab intellectual forums, the Arab Thought Forum in Amman, is very important, because if you remember, after 1967, most of the secular ideologies in the Arab world had collapsed in front of Islamism.
Right.
And the Arab thought, Arab nationalists retreated, and what you have in the last 40 or 50 nothing but Islamism, supported by outsiders and also by some reactionary forces. And that's why the Arab world fell into a big, black hole. Until you had this important revolution in Egypt on the 30th of June 2013, which was something similar to the earthquake that ended communism in East Europe. It was a big, big event. But the war against terrorism needed also intellectual backing, a new ideology, reviving Arab nationalism. Right. Remember when President Sisi talked about the importance of having an Arab deterrent force, Arab military deterrent force. Right. And that idea collapsed. I don't know why. Everything was happening, and there was meeting between the chief of staff and the Minister of Defense and the Arab League, and everybody believed it would be soon signed, and we will have an Arab force instead of having the whole world is intervening in our area. We wanted to be responsible for our own security, and this didn't happen. President Sisi's meeting today is important, significant. It just says that we have to revive Arab national ideas and nationalism, and we have to go above, this kind of regionalism. Some groupings, Gulf states, for example, they have their own club, exclusive club. North Africa is in another exclusive club. And the result is that you have a fragmented Arab world. So it is very important that we try to revive Arab unity, Arab solidarity, not by words but also by action.
But do you think that's a sentiment shared by other Arab nations?
Well, of course, these new ideas, because Arab nationalism, for example, was not taken easily by the Gulf states, rich Gulf states, because they felt this is an ideology by four Arab states, Egypt, Syria, Tunisia, who want to unite with the rich countries. And so they were not, for it. But at the same time, they were not against unity. The fact that you have the so-called Gulf Cooperation Council, they are trying to have one currency. They have a deterrent force, the Gulf Shield. The fact that they are really interested in having unity. You need just to convince them. You need to promote the idea and spread it among the masses. Because what we are seeing is that, everybody is taking care of their own business. They don't care about the others.
Right.
And they think that the fire would not catch up. But no, the fire would catch up with you. If you are ignoring what is happening in Yemen, in Syria, in Iraq, and you think that you are rich and you are immune, this is wrong. The fire can catch everybody. We have seen the fire from the Middle East reaching Paris, reaching America, reaching London yesterday. So you cannot say that we are immune. The idea that we can, the world would just sit still and don't care about Afghanistan. Afghanistan came to America, as we have seen with Al-Qaeda.
Right.
So the Arab world needs to unite and needs this intellectual dimension, and then it has to be boosted with economic and military cooperation.
And I thank you very much, Dr. Saeed. So unfortunately, that is all the time I have. Professor of Political Sociology, thank you very much for your insights and for your time. Gentlemen, once again, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Dr. Kamal, let me start off with you. Our main topic of discussion today is the new world, if you say, garnering up attack against Daesh that includes most recently Germany and the United Kingdom. How do you see these decisions by these two countries to join the airstrikes on Daesh in Syria?
Well, I would like to say, first of all, that as far as airstrikes, all military experts agree that airstrikes by themselves are not going to even have a dent in winning the war against the terrorist organization ISIS or Daesh or whatever you call it. As far as the German contribution to the war effort, I see it half-hearted because Germany, generally speaking, is very reluctant to get engaged in any military involvement in the Middle East. And we have seen that in Libya, for example. And before that, we have seen it during the chancellorship of Gerhard Schröder in Iraq. Germany refused utterly to get involved militarily in those wars. But German involvement here is simply an obligation to its main ally in the European Union, which is France. Right. In other words, it's just covering the back of the French who are militarily involved and have sent Charles de Gaulle aircraft carrier and have conducted some missions. So the German contribution is more really concerned with projecting solidarity with their main partners in the European Union. As far as the British are concerned, I think it's also not likely to cause any dent in the war against the terrorist
organization. If you're saying that the airstrikes are going to cause no dents for the terrorist organization, why are they being carried out?
Well, you have to ask those who ordered this in the first place. But before you do that, you have to consider where did Daesh come from. It's murky. It's very obscure, the origin. It's very difficult for me to comprehend that such a massive terrorist organization just erupts all of a sudden like this. in spite of the fact that there are very advanced intelligence techniques. We know, for example, that Al-Qaeda was established by the USA in order to fight the Soviet Union in Afghanistan. Al-Qaeda means the base. And Osama bin Laden was then the darling of the CIA. Daesh, the origins of, apparently the Al-Qaeda has already outlived its usefulness, and Daesh has sprung in its place.
Do you think, or do you think it's just evolution, if you will?
Well, they are both supposedly Sunni organizations, but the brutality that Daesh has manifested worldwide, and if we believe what we see in the news and on television, so I would not say that it is an evolution of Al-Qaeda, but I think it is part of the general scheme to divide the region, and I think in essence it is to destroy Syria and divide it and enhance the aspirations of the Kurdish people to have a separate state, which is Kurdistan, which is taken partly from Iraq and partly from Syria. So in order to understand or to answer your question, you have to go back to see who is behind Daesh.
Right.
And as far as I know, they are receiving financial aid from several sources, and the soldiers that are hurt or injured are sometimes treated in Israel or in Turkey.
Right.
So the whole project of Daesh, one has to go beyond the news and try to go to the origin of things and find out where it comes from.
Dr. Samir, let me ask you perhaps about something very important that Dr. Kamal raised, and that is the fact that no matter how many countries join the airstrikes on Daesh, that they really won't cause much dents or much damage to the organization. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with this. Air assault till now 8,300 air assault from American and its allies. Daesh is more expanded during this time. The gun not sufficient to end the terrorism. We must fight the reasons, the incubation environment that produce this terrorism, not just to destroy the countries. Destroying the countries lead us to these circumstances. The invasion in Iraq make overcries that make a resistance movement. This resistance movement changes from nationalities to terrorism. Even after occupiers leave, then they changes to terror against their people, against their countries, to exterminate people, not just for the occupiers. The same case in Somalia. After the human occupation leave Somalia, Shabab Somal changes to Al-Qaeda allies and changes to the terror against their land, against their people. Collecting these forces, if you have a country or organized army, it's good, but you can't sweep all of them. If you make a sweeper air assault, then you will destroy all the people, not just the terrorists. The terrorism is a multi-dimensional phenomena.
But let me just expand on that, because here we're seeing two different points of view. We're seeing the West, I will call it the West for the sake of simmering it down, but it's Germany, France, United Kingdom, the US saying the airstrikes will work. Then Russia comes into the equation and it says, no, they have not been targeting Daesh during their airstrikes. I am targeting
Yes.
Daesh in my airstrikes.
Yes.
What is the difference between these two dynamics?
Before knowing the difference, we must ask a question. Russia and American allies fight terrorism or fighting each other?
Right.
It's the main question. Russia till now against the opposition of Al-Assad in a region not belongs to stronghold region of ISIS.
Right.
In Turkoman mounts, in Latakia, in Halab, not in the eastern swaths of Syria, not in Raqqa, not in Hasaka. There is some real air assault against Raqqa, but the main target not ISIS region. And on another side, Russia armament not proportion to ISIS has submarines, nuclear submarines, and not just troops that.
So this is do you think? So you're saying that this is a cold war between the two
Yes.
sides being
Yes.
played out
Yes.
on Syrian soil?
Not just eliminating ISIS. Also, ISIS must fight in Iraq and Syria at the same time. Not in Syria nowadays, and before this in Iraq, in Mosul only. Must have an inclusive and comprehensive strategic in the land of ISIS and all over the world to fight the main causes of terrorism. In France, if you have thousands of air assault in Iraq and Syria, this does not correct the matter in France. Marginalization of Muslims and coexistence, alignment, Islamophobia. I think.
Do you think these countries realize that they have a problem? Do you think these countries realize, and I'll perhaps put this question to you, Dr. Kamal, that they have also helped create the lone wolves that we see, the sleeper cells that we see, the third and fourth generations who decide to claim allegiance to Daesh because of marginalization, because of social and economic problems?
This is definitely a very, very important point. And the fact that most of those who committed terrorist acts in France were actually born in France. They were French nationals, but they were marginalized by the society, and they have been the unemployment rate among those who have origins from North Africa is over 70% in some parts of France, while the overall unemployment rate is less than 10%. So yes, this is definitely a point. And this you can also generalize to the whole Middle East also. The unfair distribution of wealth in the region has all, together with the education of new generation of students, particularly in the West, these people feel frustrated because they feel that they don't have their piece of the pie, so to speak. And their frustration sometimes would project itself as a revolution against the system, the regime, and joining whatever they think is their salvation or whatever is going to bring their rights. And there is nothing better than religion.
But all we're hearing from major countries is not, let me deal with the core of the problem, which is marginalization, unemployment, uneven distribution of wealth. All we're hearing is, let's bomb Syria, let's bomb Iraq. Perhaps even Libya now is being discussed in one way or another.
Well, that makes sense when you think about the origin of Al-Qaeda or the origin of Iraq. The whole thing is meant to revise Sykes-Picot, which divided the region artificially into different states. Now they want to divide it even more, so that there is one state that is meant to have total domination, and that must include the division of Syria and the division of Iraq.
Right.
Iraq, it was a very promising country when it was united and did not have big sectarian differences until Saddam was gone and Iraq was invaded on false pretenses. Syria was also a very major country with a lot of promise, a lot of natural resources, and a very industrious population. Now Syria has been targeted to be divided into at least three entities. Daesh has to be looked upon within this philosophy. And you can talk about fanatics, you can talk about religion, fanaticism, and so on, but I think one has to look at the total picture, what is the molding of the Middle East into a new Middle East, what Condoleezza Rice said, the creative chaos,
Right.
from which you have those entities. But a final result is that you want to have one state here with total domination. Thank God that Egypt has been spared this scenario of being divided into several units. Thank God that this did not happen. However, Egypt is also targeted in other ways. So what I would like to say is, when we look at the news, I don't think we should always believe anything and everything we hear in the news, because a lot of disinformation is going around. And we have seen this, for example, as a prelude to the war on Iraq, when it was said that Iraq was possessing weapons of mass destruction.
Yes.
We had some respectable man, that General Colin Powell, who was Secretary of State at that time, repeating what Tony Blair was saying, that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction capable of attacking the West in 45 minutes. Later on, he regretted it, that it was false information that was fed to him. So it is very, very important to be discriminating when we look at a subject like Daesh and look at what's behind it.
Right, but nevertheless, this is an organization that is causing havoc not only in the Middle East, it's also has reached as far, if you will, as the United States with the attacks that were recently caused. Nevertheless, you're saying as well that airstrikes won't be enough to bring it down. But again, we've got the two sides, as I told.
Airstrikes, like my colleague said, are 6,000, 8,000. They are pinpricks and they are meant...
Yes, but the point that I'm trying to say is you've got two sides now. You've got the West, if you will, and you've got Russia. Russia says the West hasn't been targeting Daesh, but I'm going to be targeting Daesh. And Dr. Samir believes that this could be just a playing out of a Cold War on Syrian soil. Do you agree with that?
I do agree that there is some tension between Russia and the West, but I don't think it's going to be to evolve further than that. And I do think that the latest episode with the downing of the Sukhoi 24 by Turkey, I think it was a reaction to the Russians bombing the Turkmenistan part of Syria, who are Turkic people who speak Turkish, but they are part of Syria in the northwest. So that was like a red line made for Russia, but when Russia bombed this part, then the Turks downed the plane. But I do not think it's going to evolve much further and lead to a Cold War. I think it will eventually be ironed over somehow. But as far as we are concerned, I think we should always make sure that we take care of ourselves and protect ourselves.
We'll discuss that a little bit further. Dr. Samir, do you think that these countries have any intentions of putting boots on the ground in Syria?
Yes, but the dilemma is what is the country that will allow a ground troop to deploy it in Syria? The last comment for Mr. Kerry ask for Arab troops, especially Arab Sunni troops to deploy in Syria. I think Arab League not capable to do so. If it's capable to do so, to make it in Yemen, which is more important than Syria, more threat than Syria, houses is more threat in Arab Peninsula. It's a good idea, but not a viable option to do. Also, those countries, I think, will not withstand something like Kasasba style. In ground troops, you may have a large number of victims, a large number of injured, maybe some escalation in the land in Afghanistan era, in Iraq era. America suffered too many victims and casualties in Iraq. And also the people will not allow their countries to do so.
Right.
It's not applicable to do so, but it's if we have 100,000 of soldiers, of ground troops, I think will restore security in Syria and in Iraq. Also,
what about
the condition to be patriot forces like in Syria. We have Syrian army and the Free Syrian Army. How to collect them in one table, not on the ground.
Right.
It's not now. It's opposition forces. How to collect them? If you collect them, there is no Daesh.
Right.
Without any fighting, without any troops. If all the fictions collect in choosing transient peacefully and politically for
so you're
Syria.
saying that the political solution would help end Daesh as an organization?
Yes, if we have reached a political solution, there is no ISIS.
But what about Daesh now relocating? Some are relocating to Libya.
Yes, but Libya will not be like the case in Syria.
Right.
The model is different.
Right.
And there are no incubation environment. Just incubation for exist, not for expanding in Libya. You know, tribal situation and the West is the Muslim Brotherhood and the East loyalty for Haftar. And this, most Libyan is Sunni Muslim. No sectarian model, no sectarian conflict like Syria, like Iraq. The model is also no resources like selling oil in...
But the thing is this, it's still a breeding ground for extremism and for terrorism, regardless, even if it is a completely different scenario, what's happening in Libya, it's still breeding ground. It'll still be feeding this organization.
Insert Gulf, because Insert Gulf is the family of Muammar Gaddafi.
Right.
So this model like Ba'ath in Iraq. So most of members of ISIS in Libya, from Libyan people join ISIS in Syria and in Iraq, and from Al Gaddafi tribes that suffer too much from marginalization and hatred sentiment against them.
So you think that a political solution in the Middle East for all these different countries, be it Iraq, Syria or Libya, will bring an end to a group like Daesh?
No options except political solution.
Okay, I'll come back to ask the same question to Dr. Kamal right after our second report and another look at some of the major atrocities that have been taking place under the Daesh terrorist organization. Let's take a look at that and then we'll be back.
Beheadings, cutting off hands and public floggings have become daily scenes in areas held by the radical group of Daesh. Over the last 2 months, hundreds of people have been executed, whipped, and some 90 alleged thieves have had a hand chopped off in the Iraqi city of Mosul. Those who are accused of blasphemy, spying, or mocking the Daesh self-declared caliphate are being barbarically executed. The radical group has repeatedly killed civilians in the city for what it called leaking confidential information about Daesh activities. The United Nations stated that 16 mass graves have been discovered in Sinjar in northern Iraq since it was recaptured from Daesh terrorists, which also detailed gross human rights violations by the extremist group. The UN human rights group said civilians had been kidnapped, burned, and beheaded in Daesh-controlled areas, with widespread attacks on Sunnis suspected of supporting the militants. Spokesman for the UN Human Rights Agency said it's not clear how many bodies were in the graves and where exactly in Sinjar they were located. Forces from Iraq's autonomous Kurdish region, backed by air support from a US-led coalition, recaptured Sinjar from Daesh militants in a major operation on the 13th of November. She voiced particular concern for some 1,300 Sunni Iraqis stuck to the east of Sinjar in a no man's land between Kurdish security forces and Daesh. Earlier, Daesh released a video in which a Russian-speaking man confesses to spying for Russia's security services and then is shown apparently being beheaded by another Russian-speaking man. Moreover, the Daesh militant group claimed responsibility for bombing a Russian airliner shortly after it took off from the Egyptian resort of Sharm el-Sheikh in mid-October, killing all 224 people aboard. In Libya, Daesh also strengthened its grip in its stronghold Sirte as new recruits and foreign fighters join its rank, while world attention focuses on Iraq and Syria. Experts and sources in Libya said Sirte has become a new focal point for the militant group as it comes under increasing pressure in its traditional Iraqi and Syrian power bases.
Welcome back. Dr. Kamal, a question that I put to Dr. Samir earlier. Do you think that a political solution will bring an end to the Daesh terrorist organization?
A political solution is easier said than done, but yes, it is the only solution to not just Daesh, to everything. As far as Libya, I would like to come back to that. I think Libya may not have Shia-Sunni divide, but Libya has very severe tribal divisions, and Libya is ripe to be divided into Tripoli and Cyrenaica, which was there, and Fazan. That is three little. When you talk about political solution, I think, or I would like to see the Egypt in particular, especially the Al-Azhar organization, play a very decisive role in the approachment between the Sunnis and the Shia.
Right.
Just like at the time of the great Imam Mahmoud Shaltut, when he authorized praying under the Shia way of praying. And he also had what they call a ruwaq for Shia in the Al-Azhar. And even though the largest majority in Egypt are Sunnis, yet Egypt has never known antipathy to the Shia. An example of that is the King Farouk. He married his sister off to the Shah of Iran, who is a Shia. So this is a new phenomenon, and the division that has been widened between, and we find fanatics from both sides harping at each other. I think this is a major problem, and if this is attacked head on, especially by the largest Sunni organization in the Islamic world, and that is Al-Azhar, that will go a long way towards the political solution that you are talking about, because this is the root of problems between Iran on one side and its allies, and between the rest of the Muslim Sunni population.
Right.
So this is part
Let's
of it.
expand on the whole peace negotiations and finding a peaceful solution. Now, recently France said that President Bashar al-Assad is no longer a problem. If he does not step down before a political transition process takes place, it won't be a setback, if you will. Do you see this as a way that this would make a difference to regional reconciliation? Or do you think that this is going to be a sticking block? And do you think that other countries in the West are going to be following in France's footsteps?
Well, I do believe, by the way, today Bashar al-Assad had a statement that he said that attacking a certain element of the terrorist uprising in his region, and that includes Syria and Iraq, is like removing a little piece of cancer instead of removing the whole tumor. And he said what this will do is simply make the cancer spread even further. I tend to agree with him, and whatever, he has been demonized. I am not familiar with any aggravated assaults that he has done before this, and the description of so-called moderate opposition is difficult for me to understand. Syrian opposition is difficult for me to understand when you are carrying guns and machine guns and heavy weapons. I don't know how moderate that could be. So actually, getting the current government of Syria into the fold and cooperating with it, I think will go a long way towards solving the problem, at least in Syria and also in Iraq to some extent. Today, the Iraqi government, by the way, dismissed the participation of Turkey by ground troops in northern Iraq with the expressed intention of fighting Daesh, when actually Turkey is after the Turks, after the Kurds, because Turkey has a big Kurdish problem, the Kurdistan. Yeah. Yes. So what I'm saying is yes. To answer to your question, I think yes, the participation of the current Syrian regime
will make a difference. Do you agree, Dr. Samir?
Yes, I agree. Firstly, with that, we need a definition for the moderates who carry gun and machine gun and kill with the name of the nation. Not moderates. Moderates handle the matter peacefully and politically, not by force, not by violence. It's another sort of terrorism. Terrorism against others, also against innocent people, not just ISIS and al-Nusra. Also, this moderate forces had not achieved any good achievement. Just 5% of the land, 55% in ISIS, and a quarter of Syria in Bashar, and the remain in Nusra.
Right.
Also, all the strategy of train and equip is failed. No way for this so-called Free Syrian Army to Nusra to overcome Bashar or overcome ISIS.
Right. And do you think the talks that are being held in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday will make much of a difference?
When the Arab has a common viewpoint and a common decision about Bashar al-Assad, then we begin the solution, a serious solution. Saudi concerned with Bashar al-Assad. Egypt concerned with the Syrian people future, not just to stay or to go not this.
Do you think there's a greater role, because I'm running out of time, but do you think there's a greater role for Egypt to play? Yesterday saw Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov hold a telephone conversation with Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry to discuss the Syrian crisis. Do you think Russia is hoping for Egypt to get more involved?
Yes, Egypt is a key role in Syria, in Yemen, as well as in Libya.
Right.
The good relation between Egypt and Russia will help Egypt and Russia to reach for a reconciliation in this
right.
problem.
And Dr. Kamal, do you think there's a role for Egypt to play?
I think Egypt is a key country.
Right.
Egypt, however, is compromised economically. That is obvious to everybody who has eyes. And this is really curtailing the input that Egypt could do on the situation in the region as a whole. But yes, theoretically speaking, I think only Egypt can influence the situation positively. Because you mentioned Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has its own record as helping in Nusra Front and all these places. And Daesh, of course, nobody knows where the source of finances in the beginning were. And now they are extracting oil and selling it everywhere. And they got mad when the Russians bombed the trucks that are hundreds of trucks carrying those oil westwards towards Europe, through Turkey. So yes, Egypt definitely has a role to play, and it's really unfortunate that Egypt has so many problems confronting it at this time, particularly from the economic point of view. And I hope things will turn around soon.
The fact that Egypt has been chosen to lead the Counter-Terrorism Committee at the United Nations, to be the head of that committee, do you think that it's going to be also being able to take more or make more suggestions, if you will, to change the way the world perceives the terrorism threat and perhaps also counter it more effectively?
It's a feather in our cap, but this committee has been around since 9/11, and the committee has not had any imprint on anything whatsoever. It's all the individual states, particularly the major powers. And if you want some reading on the subject, I think you should read the manifesto written in 1996 by the group that are called neoconservatives. And it's called Securing the Realm. And you will see the scenario written there. Securing the Realm, REALM, which was presented to Netanyahu by a group of Americans. So if you read that manifesto, you will find out exactly it has been implemented, and that, yes, includes Al-Qaeda and Daesh.
Okay, I thank you very much, Dr. Kamal Abou Okail, member of the European Committee of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs.
I'm the chief of that committee.
Chief of the European Committee. Thank you very much. And Dr. Samir Raghib, lecturer at Nasser Military Academy and strategic expert. Thank you very much for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. Thanks very much for watching, and goodbye. Thank you.